Hey friends. I'm sitting here on the porch of some dear friends' house right across the street from where I lived for a number of years. I would show you, but I'm kind of in a screened-in porch, so I don't think you'd really see me. Oh, here, let's try it. That's the house I lived in for quite a while, maybe like 3 years. And we have arrived in Chicago. We went straight from the airport, straight to the new baby cousin. And I was actually sort of surprised, quite surprised, at two things. First of all, let me just talk about my own experience of meeting my baby niece, who is today 1 week old. It was amazing to meet a baby that age, to be reminded what babies are like at that age. It's so, you don't see too many of them. It's not like you see 6-day-old infants running around town usually. So it was fun to just enter that cocoon. It's also incredible to see my brother and his wife as parents now. You know, this is one of these, I mean, talk about a threshold. It's one of these moments in life where you cross into another phase of life, and it's irrevocable, and it's immediate, and it's dramatic. It's not subtle. It's not a slight shift. It's not a gradual transition. Your life just changes overnight. You know, it's one of the most sort of pronounced and evident shifts that takes place, I think. Speaking for myself anyway. And so that was a very cool thing to see. What surprised me, and where most of my focus was for most of the time, was on how Annalise just, I mean, it was like she thought this thing was her baby sister. She walked right over to it. I had to get her to wash her hands. She walked right over to it, and she just immediately wanted to hold it. She immediately wanted to talk to it. She immediately was totally smitten, and spent at least 2 hours just fascinated by the baby. Didn't want to leave the baby, didn't want to do anything else, didn't really want to take her focus off the baby. She played some violin for the baby, but she would only play the lullaby songs. I kept trying to get her to play her like cool songs. She knows the Two Grenadiers and these other songs from book 2 that are like her. They just show off how well she can play. She's playing really spectacularly right now, and she wouldn't play them. She was like, no, they would wake the baby. They would disturb the baby. She only wanted to play like the folk songs and Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star from the first couple of songs she ever learned. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. You're right. You have good sensibilities. But it was truly something to see her get so enamored and to be so completely absorbed. I thought, you know, babies don't do much. They just kind of sit there. And then when they open their eyes, it's like a big event. It's like that's a huge thing. Is the baby opens its eyes and you can see its eyes for a couple minutes. Whoa. And so I was like, is she gonna have, is there gonna, like, is she gonna just like see this and then be bored after 5 minutes? Not at all. I mean, like hours. She wanted to hold the baby, and then the baby, she'd get really hot because the baby's like holding a little bundle of coal, and then she'd need to put the baby down because she was too hot, and then she'd want to immediately pick up the baby again. You know, she had to learn a little bit about what it means to transition a baby. That, like, for a baby to be passed from one person to another is like the biggest event a baby ever experiences for like the first several weeks of their life. Like, that's all that happens to them, is they get passed from one person to the next. To mama and then away from mama, I'm guessing, is kind of like the internal perception. I'm going towards mama, I'm going away from mama. I'm with mama, I'm not with mama. those are your basic states. And but she was just fascinated. I mean, literally more than 2 hours we were there, and her focus never really wavered from the baby. She just wanted to, and she was petting it and kissing it and being so sweet. And she was surprised by how cute it was. She was, you know, she thought that she said if she even thinking that it was going to be a cute baby, she didn't know how cute it was going to be. So we chalked up a pretty cool experience yesterday. And, you know, and I have to say, you know, coming back here, being on this street, I was up this morning doing a little yoga, just looking out at the street, looking out at the houses that I spent, you know, at least 2 or 3 years living around, maybe more like 4. It reminds me of a state. Reminds me of a state of my own life. You know, there's a kind of like, I get an impression sometimes. This happens to me in other places as well, but it's happening pretty powerfully on this trip. I get an impression of my mental imprint, like where my mind generally was, what it felt like to be me in this earlier phase of life. I just get this like waft of it by being plunged back into the place where I was. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I sometimes wonder whether there will be chapters of our lives that we live other places other than where we're currently based in New Mexico. And there was a long time where I felt like I had to, or I felt an impulse to make sure that I go somewhere, that we go somewhere, that we go somewhere exciting, that we do exciting things with our life and manifest that by going to cool places. And I will say that impulse it's not as powerful in me anymore. And I think, and I attribute that to maturity. I don't think the impulse was ever really that healthy or helpful of a one. I think it was just kind of a desire to feel like we were going somewhere, I was going somewhere, somehow moving to a big city was going to represent a kind of success. And I have backed off of most of that. I don't really care about that anymore. I still love going places that have wonderful art scenes and music scenes, and on some level I think I would like to be immersed in that again, and I would like to immerse Annalise in that kind of an environment. But I have much less of a need for that to happen in any specific way, which I think ultimately, ironically, or sort of like in a synchronistic way, may actually facilitate it happening. I don't know that. I really don't, and I'm not trying to manufacture it, but I just every once in a while I get a sense. It's like an impression that a change is coming, that a new place is coming for us. And I don't know what it looks like, but I come back to a place like this, like Chicago, and there's a real charge here for me. There's a sense of, it happened last time I came back. I was here in October, same thing. I had a sense of, oh, there's a certain kind of like nourishment, the land. I know the land here. So who knows? But it's interesting to have a bit of sort of memory coming back, impressions of my past, while at the same time full on slamming into the future in the form of this little baby. So I think that's where I am this morning, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.